This is Navigating Cyber Risk podcast with me, John Riley, and George Usey as your hosts. Join us as we explore the challenges faced by executives as they grapple with new and ever-changing cybersecurity mandates.
Everybody, welcome to Navigating Cyber Risk. We're back, John and his beard, and me as I don't know, what am I, a sidekick every once in a while?
The beard precede me? I don't know now. That's scary.
No, we don't want to make it so that you can never shave your beard, but yes, we're back.
I'm sorry. Marketing has already told me that I can't do that.
I know.
So I'm well aware already.
Yeah. Well, it is a great persona, but we're here to talk about some serious and happy and fun stuff all at the same time.
I'm gonna start that with a story.
Yes, I want you to tell it.
And he said that, working for the government, you have to have a beard to be taken seriously. Now he's in the process of transferring to commercial. And he goes, but with the beard, I'm just not taking this seriously. So he had to shave. So maybe it's time for me to shave. Anyways, let's move on.
Let's move on. I don't know. You are a president of a company, so are you going to go start working for the government or?
Well, we're here to talk about CMMC. So
We're here to talk about CMMC. We're here to talk about all sorts of juicy stuff.
Fair enough.
I think you look quite distinguished.
Why, thank you.
Okay. All right. You already mentioned CMMC, so let's go ahead. Let's start with CMMC. I was reading a little story on LinkedIn, and I'll probably get it screwed up, but I'm going to tell it anyways, and you guys can go check your facts. I am not an attorney. I play one on TV. So, and then we're going to ask John, because he was just at Seek West, and we'll get into this, but there was an organization, I won't say what industry, because obviously with the DIB, it can be supporting from many industries, and this is a $30 million company, declined getting help to get ready for an audit, self-attested. Yeah, trust me, self-attest, that always works, right? Anyways, self-attested and declined the help, said they would never get audited because they were too small. 30 million's too small. But what do you think just happened, John?
They got audited because that's what's going to happen.
They got audited because that's what's going to happen. So what do you think is now going on with that organization? Because that's where you're the smarter guy in the room. So let's go here. The only guy in the room right now.
True. Well, so what of course then happened is since they self-attested, now now there's a lot of things that could happen. One is that they could be brought up for fraud. Depending on how serious the connection is. And let's be real. The whole reason for CMMC is because people were self-attesting before. We're doing everything great. My Spurs score is this, and I've self-attested. And then they were giving data away. So the whole reason for the audits of the CMMC is because of the self-attestation it isn't working. So the U.S. government happens to be the first one doing that. However, commercial businesses are doing it with questionnaires and third-party auditing. And anytime somebody's sharing their data, it's becoming much more common to require some sort of compliance requirement. So if you're sharing data, you got to ask, what are you doing with the data? How are you protecting it? What things, or should I share my data with you? That's becoming more common, and self-attestation or even technical attestation isn't going to cut it anymore. It's going to have to be somebody that specifically is doing audits and somebody that is focused and understands what an audit is. That's been trained to do audits. I will say audits are kind of emotionless, right? It's a pass fail. It's are you doing the right things, and can you prove it?
And can you prove it?
and it's not just, can you prove it for now? Can you prove it forever? And so it's a consistent thing. Those are the things that people run up against, and where they run into issues.
Yeah.
It's all fun and games until somebody loses data.
until somebody loses data. There's one thing that I kind of think about too, as you were saying, you got to ask. I find that people they've got to want to, and they don't. Organizations, this organization actually did. There is going to be legal action because they actually, yeah. And I'm not going to get into the ins and outs of it, but I get it. It's hard sometimes to know exactly what as especially when you feel like you're a small business, which 30 million is still classified as small business, right? But sometimes it's hard to know what to sift through. You and I have been in business long enough that, not every resource produces the same and equal outcome that we want, right? I get it. I get that some just don't want to have to worry about this kind of thing. But at the same token, this was a revenue opportunity. You're selling into the DIB, and contracts now went from what to what with this organization.
I'm not sure what you're asking on that one. I mean,
You got a contract with the defense, and it's
yeah,
with
you
Department of Defense.
yeah.
Where'd it go?
Well, I mean, now the contract's probably put on hold or going to somebody else. I mean, if they can't prove this, then that revenue's gone. It depends on now. The question is, how much of that one contract was that required? But again, self-attestation. I mean, we've had self-attestation out there for a long time now, and I mean, what the reason for CMMC is in 2014 when the F-22 or F-35 cockpit information got leaked. I mean, that's what caused this issue. And no more self-attestation unless you're just dealing with very limited information. So it's coming. I mean, this has been coming since 2014, and
That's a challenge. The cry wolf scenario, people don't believe it, but now it's happening, and now you have the catching of your tail for that kind of thing. Let's get into self-attestation. Let's get into the to trust me. From Valerie's world, I love to use State Farm's ad from 2012, the French model. Have I done that one?
I
Have I
don't
talked about it?
I don't think so. Tell me about it.
Okay. So it was kind of the onslaught of the digital deluge of like when we went from really, you know, 2008 kind of had that shift, with the economic downturn and people starting to buy differently on their because of the iPhone, really, as you started to see how they started to search online more and more and more. So you fast forward a few years and you have the rise of Google and all of these things. And State Farm does this brilliant ad that says, and it's like 90 seconds, and I use it all the time because it elaborates the point so well for self-attestation. There's this woman there talking to the State Farm agent. State Farm agent says, she's saying, I've got a date with a French model tonight. And he says, well, how do you know that it's a French model? No, he says, how do you know? And she said, because Google told me so. Right. And, we all know fast forward search engines and all these databases, right? And gosh, it must be true. And then, of course, this actor, I don't want to characterize people as homely or not homely, but was supposed to be homely. He kind of walks up and he's kind of slunched and he kind of says, he walks up and he puts his arm around her and says, Bonjour. And he says it just like that, right? Bonjour. And so at the end of the day, we're moving forward into AI and have been moving into AI. I mean, AI has been around forever, so that part's not it. But the recent bout and the escalation of it right now. So talk about self-attestation against what we were just saying just now.
Well, I mean, I'm a French model in that case, right?
Uh-huh. And so you wear your beard the whole time.
Bonjour. Yeah. All right.
No, no,
So,
you did it better than even
yeah,
that. You said bonjour.
yeah, bonjour. Hey, bonjour. Okay, I let my Southern show, right?
Yeah.
Bonjour. Anyways, so yeah, I mean, self-attestation. I mean, I can again. I guess on dating apps, it's your own self-attestation, and I think everybody knows how those are working out, I suppose, right? Um, but again, what we've come to is that the trust me model, that I'm doing all the right things, that I am 6'5" and in finance and six figures or whatever, right? Those are the trust me factors, right?
Yeah.
Um, yeah, or yeah, I mean, so there's all these things that we just say trust me, and we with AI and with some of, I mean, even before the days of AI, but now with AI, it's even worse. I mean, I can't tell you how many articles I read. I was watching a video about how Disney is moving Disneyland from Anaheim to Las Vegas, and I was like, I don't believe it. And so I went and searched for it, and I found the same article from the same video, and but then other things were like Anaheim's expanding and this and that, and I was just like, why? I mean, I'm not sure what people are doing with sending out just false information, and
Oh,
it's
yeah.
and but making it believable and everything else. So you just have to, I don't know, take the rose-colored glasses off and really do your own research, find out what's going on, because you can't even read anything anymore. You can't watch anything and really go with it. You have to be, I would say we have to be in a life of critical thinking, more so today. That self-attestation is the same thing. As a business owner, you can say, trust me, you can say, I've got all these things in place, but nobody's going to believe you anymore. I mean, if I have to check, if I have to fact check, a 30-second video, I'm definitely going to be fact checking the fact that, that you're doing cybersecurity and that you're protecting data that's critical to our defense industrial base. I mean, or even the PII data, or any
Yeah.
other type of data that we find important. I mean, HIPAA data, I don't want my HIPAA data out there. I don't want my social security numbers out there. I don't, all these things. Now some of it already is. I mean, my information's been hacked.
I was gonna say I was you know, pre-Amazon. They can probably clone me, right? So I'm not sure. I saw the best. I saw these great deep fakes. I actually shared it on LinkedIn because it showed how you can just chat into this AI video production, and it will create actual humans, and it does look like humans. And they're literally saying, will you prompt something else instead of me dying in this scene and everything? Because it's like all these sensational scenes. And it was absolutely incredible. And I don't think that this is so far from our realm of thinking. Star Trek had holograms and all sorts of things that worked exactly in that kind of realm of thinking and fantasy and all those things. But now we're pitted head on with some of this stuff. And I swear there's going to be like it's not like Alcoholics Anonymous. It's going to be AI Anonymous because kids are growing up and don't have any idea what's real and what's not real anymore because it's so and it's like all technology is so good and it's so bad at exactly the same time. So
Well,
let's
it's
get into how you can kind of thwart some of that, John.
and it's still, I mean, it's still bad enough right now that you could still tell the difference. What
Yeah.
my concern is in 2, 3, 5 years from now.
1 year.
Maybe. I mean, yeah, it could. I mean, as fast as things are moving, it could very well could just be a year.
Yeah.
But I mean, the interviewers. I mean, the all of the things that are video wise happening. Being able to have your avatar be your person.
Yeah.
Uh, there's some interesting things afoot that how do there may need to be that federal regulation that comes in that says, that maybe it's a little AI in the corner or something that, if that every AI company has to produce, or who knows what that's going to look like. Um,
Yeah.
that's for somebody with a much higher pay grade than me. to figure that one out. But because it is going to take a lot of critical thinking, it's going to take a lot of people understanding that what they see may not be true. I mean, there's always been strange videos that kind of popped out that I mean, come on, back in the very beginning days of the internet, the dancing baby. I'm sure everybody's seen it.
Oh, that was that was disturbing to me. That wasn't
That,
just
that was the first viral kind of video that circulated on the internet, right? Um, but I mean, if you think about what they did with that back then, I mean, it's still pretty amazing that they were able to make that technology back then, and where we're at today, where, like I said, video avatars and full on interviews. I mean, scam interviews, maybe. Who knows? I mean,
Yeah. And how do you prove it? And so that brings me to the compliance portion of this. Compliance is never one and done, right? And so you're saying you're self-attesting, but there is going to be some time where you're going to have to actually say, here's the proof to what I was actually doing. And court of law doesn't really love it when you try to self-attest to your own proof. I mean, it's not but even if it wasn't a court of law, other organizations are going to require it because they put themselves reputationally at risk. That's why all the questionnaires, are you going to see more questionnaires? Of course, you're going to see more questionnaires.
it's the data at risk, right? I mean, and
Yeah.
what does that look like? The more data that's at risk, the more questionnaires you're going to see. And if you look at today's society, I mean, there's two things that I'll say. Today is a data-driven society still, right? I mean, since the internet has been here, I mean, we've been saying that for years. I
Hmm.
will say that the new part of it also, though, is that it's now also a trust-driven society. So, I mean, if you can't build that trust, I mean, it always has been. I mean, you go back to how to win friends and influence people. I mean, one of the original books of
Yeah,
relationships was all about building trust.
it was.
So I mean, that's going to be the way that it is. We're humans. Even though the technology changes and everything else, we're still human, and so those principles don't change.
Yeah, it just sometimes makes it a little harder. You're part of a provisor group. How are they dealing with some of this?
So Provise is just a kind of an interesting organization, mostly lawyers. So referrals. I mean, it's all about know, like, trust, and refer. Uh,
No, like, trust.
yeah,
Yes.
no,
There you, that's why I brought it up. No,
yeah,
like, and trust.
that is their motto. The other piece of that is that it's mostly, like I said, it's mostly lawyers, but lawyers are very good about staying in their lane. And so when you ask if you ask a divorce attorney to do your patent, he's probably going to tell you no, or here's somebody else.
Hmm.
Because they're very specialized in what they do. We're finding that more and more with technology, with compliance. I mean, you have to have a compliance speciality. You can't just have the guy that's really good at routers be your compliance guy anymore. And just because he's great at getting a packet from point A to point B, or stopping a packet from getting from point C to point D, doesn't mean that he's great with the compliance and the written part of it, and
We say hire brother Bob and train him up. And 10 years from now, he might be there.
but the problem is, look, I come from an MSP background, and so I look back and see my own errors in this, and so I'm speaking this from my own experience, and that's that, you've been somewhat successful in business, and so you think you're really smart, right? I've built a business, and I've got 10, 15, 20 employees, and you're telling me that I need to have somebody else do this stuff for me. No, I don't. I've been able to figure it all out to this point, and even though I'm buying software and I'm buying these other services and everything else, I can figure out compliance and make it work within my own organization because I'm smart. And yes, you may be, but then you're auditing yourself. So and there's no way that you can just go, well, I'm going to have the ethics. I'm going to hire somebody that has that ethics to be able to audit themselves and not have that question of, oh, we screwed up on that. How do I got to tell the client, and how do I fix it? No, I mean, it just doesn't work. I mean, it just doesn't work.
It doesn't. And when you said they might be smart,
No, they are.
I don't know. That means that smart has nothing to do with wisdom.
Well, and that's just, I mean, they're extremely smart. I mean, people, the people that I've run into that own MSPs, they're extremely smart. I mean, they've learned the technology, they've learned the business, they've learned, a number of things. They've survived, right?
Yeah.
And that's why I say but then they start to get a little full of themselves because they haven't failed. They've been able to pull it through on everything else. And so there isn't that, so it's almost fearless. So when it comes to compliance, they're a little bit fearless when it comes to that.
Yeah. And that's, I think, why I kind of wanted to bring that subject up of AI, because at the end of the day, do you want to take a drug that hasn't been tested? We just came through COVID and there was up and downs on that one, right? Because everybody was so desperate for something, but at the end, you don't. A drug that's not been tested for many, many years. So it's kind of that squirrely little thing. If it's machine learning, if it's able to learn and grow on its own without lots of, you can train it to be the evil overlord. It could be Voldemort if you want it to be, right? And so when we're talking about compliance and merging that maybe with the AI policy discussion, your AI feeds into so many things that are going into any of the other frameworks that are happening, right? Because you're protecting, that's one part of protecting the data. And because we don't know, especially with app developers and everything else, you don't really know the outcome of the drug, right?
Well, and you talked about that a little bit earlier because what you talked about was, students today, I mean, are using AI to do their homework and do these things, right? I,
Yep.
I will say when I
That's
was,
another discussion. Where are
yeah,
universities headed with all of this? But keep going.
when I was a child and I had my Mac Plus back in the day, right? I mean, my dad he restricted how much time I could spend on that computer for because it was harming my brain or whatever, right?
I could
Yeah.
see that.
I mean, it did. Don't get me wrong, but it also, I mean, I became very good at doing those things. But
Yeah.
the more time that I spent on it, the more learning that I did, the more that I understood computers. There was lots of good things that came out of that.
Hmm.
But from his perspective and from his generational side of things, it was a waste of time. There was a lot of things. He bought the computer. He did a lot of things to help foster that. But so what I'm saying is that I've lived in my most of my adult life and with computers.
Yeah.
What's going to happen is we're going to have these people that come out with AI and they're going to live they're going to start to live most of their adult life with AI. And so when my dad told me not to use the computer, right? I was still using the computer, I mean,
Yeah.
for whatever reason, right? Um, what's going to happen though is when today's children turn into adults and they're told not to use AI, they're going to be like, oh, well, that old fart over there told me not to do this, but I'm going to do it anyways because that's how I get stuff done.
Yes.
Now, the problem that's going to come is that what data are they feeding that, right? And then and is it classified data? Is it HIPAA data? Is it something that shouldn't that we old people understand that shouldn't be shared, but but we're just old, so they think we can do it anyways. And I think that's where it's going to get interesting is being able to try and control that with either policies and explain it so that there's that critical thinking that goes along with it for them to
Yeah.
understand that there are reasons because I never thought that there was a reason for me not to be on the computer,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? And
Yeah.
so that's going to be the next challenge is understanding that for the next generations.
Well, and I was on a call with somebody that he literally said, I hear this all the time, well, it's in the cloud. So my organization doesn't need to verify or do anything. We say trust but verify kind of scenario. We don't have to do anything. We don't have to follow any programs because it's under Microsoft. And I'm like, but how many things hook into that? Think about all the agents that hook into that and the shadow technology.
It's even more than that. If you look at the underlying contract that you clicked through during your Microsoft sign up process, it basically says, we're providing this as a service. you are configuring it. There's still requirements for you to configure it correctly. There's still, turning on multi-factor authentication. We can make suggestions. We're going to do these things to try and help you out. But ultimately, if you choose to leave yourself absolutely insecure, there is nothing that we're going to do about that. And you are liable, not personally, but I mean you are liable for those changes and those needs. So saying that things are in the cloud is great, and that is definitely I've
It's
always
easy. I'm done. Check it off the list.
yeah, and which is a great way to do it because I mean I come from the days when we actually installed software on big servers and ran it from our own place, and then you had four guys in an IT room that were supposed to be running 10 or 15 or 30 different applications for a multi-million-dollar company, and they're doing all the desktop. So I mean, yeah, it was a huge change. I mean, now with Microsoft, you've got 100 security engineers or 500 security engineers that are watching this stuff,
Yeah.
and that you wouldn't be able to afford if you were trying to run your own IT. That's the
Yeah.
good parts of it. The bad parts are if you don't understand what you did and what you signed up for, you're still in a world of hurt, even if you've outsourced it to somebody else.
Yeah. You just don't know what you don't know. I think that it's like there's LegalZoom and then there's actually talking to an attorney and then there's talking to Chat GPT. All right. What are you going to do here? I mean, it's like, come on.
So I'm gonna get my LegalZoom contract. I'm gonna upload it to ChatGPT and ask for their assistance, and then I'm gonna send it to the lawyer for the actual real life.
And that it's exactly my steps too. In fact, sometimes I even bypass the LegalZoom and do it and then send it to my attorney to look at it and say, but then if you ask ChatGPT, it will literally say, please don't put any details in here that could be identifiable. And that's how simple that can be. You can actually leak something that simple, and we love it. And I love it. And we all know that we love it. It's a great tool. It's fascinating. It's like this addictive drug. You're like, I'll just ask ChatGPT to tell me how wonderful I am today because nobody else is. I mean, it's like
I haven't tried that yet. I'm gonna have to do that. I, I will say that I did run my facial piece through like some AI to see what it would come back with because they're like, oh, we can give you these great pictures, these great profile pictures. I will tell you that when it had the beard, I shared the pictures with you. I mean,
you
it
did,
came
you
back.
did. And I did the same thing. I came back and I'm like, well, there's some anatomical features that I wish I had that came out in those.
Yeah, I mean the beard just disappeared. I mean it was quite an interesting perspective on what I would look like. So,
Yeah,
but I think, but again, they're going to learn how to do that better. They're going to learn how to deal with the facial parts of it. And I mean, already audio wise, I mean, I had a friend of mine who was actually hacked with the virtual audio, uh,
hmm
doing a voice authentication with a bank for a $300,000 transfer of money.
hmm
So so we're already at that point. I mean, and if you can't trust
Yeah.
audio, you can't trust video, you can't trust written, you can't. I mean, we're gonna have to figure something else out.
Well, and that's a good end to this show. Honestly, there are lots of resources out there that everybody can tap to get help with making sure you have your blueprint to start with. I mean, and then checking against the blueprint. Omnistruct is adept at that. And, if you want to contact us for that, that would be fabulous because, we're good at it.
Or if you need that attestation, if you think maybe that, hey, I can't do this self-attestation, or if you're an MSP and you go, hey, I'm providing the technology, maybe that's a little bit of a conflict, and I need somebody else to actually do a third-party audit for me besides some software piece, that's a good time to call us.
It is. And I think what's also really great about Omnistruct is it's not an organization that's just trying to get you into something. They'll actually tell you, hey, you don't need this. Have a good day, or refer to something else. So if you're just wondering, check us out. If you love this episode or hated it or in between or want to comment or like it, that's what we would prefer is the comment and like it. But we answer everything. So please comment, drop a comment down below. And John gets to say the final word. He's steering this ship.
I mean, I think we said a lot of it already. I mean, but if you need help, I mean, don't do this alone. I mean, again, there are great technology people out there. There are not a lot of great compliance people out there. I mean, the risk and the other pieces, you don't want to be in a situation where you're having to call an attorney and cover your butt later. I mean, how do you put this? Don't run outside naked unless you're ready to be on camera somewhere doing it. I mean, cover it before you go out. I mean, that's kind of the idea of what we do. So let's get you covered. Let's do it together. Let's make sure that things are buttoned up and ready to go.
That's a great way to end the show. All right. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you guys. Have a great day. This was another amazing episode of Navigating Cyber Risk, powered by Omnistruct. Show us some love by subscribing and sharing today. Reach out to us with any comments, questions, or ideas about future shows by emailing us at podcast@omnistruct.com. Until next time, remember, governance is not a technology.